So we like to let the art speak for itself, but we also like to let the artist speak for themselves. I'm proud to introduce Sandra Duran Wilson, easy for me to say. She's the author of many books, in addition to producing all this gorgeous artwork. She teaches classes. I already talked to someone about some of the classes, and I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, thank you. And just, Linda, get in here for a second, because we wouldn't be here unless it was for Linda, because she invited me to do this show with her. And so, thank you.
Like I said, it wouldn't be the same.
And I just want to say, even though we work in very different types of visuals, they work well together. And
So we're inspired by the same things.
yeah.
You'll notice that if you look at our art.
Yeah. So like the title of the show, Beyond the Threshold, I did a show years ago which was called On the Threshold. And so when you're on the threshold, you're almost in this liminal space. That liminal means like you're neither here nor there, you're in between. And so when we came up with the title for this show, I was like, this is perfect because it's beyond. What happens when you step over that threshold? Where do you go? And for me, I paint a lot about science. I paint a lot about, well, I started out in chemistry, and then I went into cognitive science, and I almost went into physics and ended up here. I'm standing in line at UNM in Albuquerque registering for classes. I was going back to school in my 30s, and it's like, do I want to go into physics or into psychology? And so I flipped a coin and psychology won. Otherwise, I'd probably be living up here and not doing art. So I did both of my degrees at UNM in fine art and in science. What is consciousness? And this was back in the 90s. It said, no, you can't study that. It has to be measured, and you can't measure consciousness. I'm like, yeah, you can. It's just not in the way you usually think. So I would work in the lab, and then I'd go work in the studio. But this show, it's like it takes you to that place of what I think we're all looking for, and what is consciousness, and what happens? You know, where do we come from? Where do we go? And I think imagination is the place that takes us there. And imagination can be in how we paint. We paint it from our imagination. It can be an imagination for a chemistry experiment or for physics, or how are you going to come to this conclusion, or how are we going to solve a problem? You have to step beyond the threshold of regular thinking in order to come up with something new. And that's what I love about this show, that we can look at it from a place of the cosmos, or the place of looking under a microscope at something very close, or the goddesses, the myths, the stories that we tell ourselves, that we've always told ourselves. It's always about who are we, where do we come from, and where are we going? So whether the story is a Greek myth, or it's what you see in a telescope, or what you see under a microscope, it's all there. So I hope you enjoy the show, and thank you for coming. And Linda and I'd be glad to answer any questions. And